Hello, how are you? Welcome or welcome back. If you're new, my name is Jen. I am a full-time reseller. I went full-time about 2 months ago. Hopping on to do a video, share a little bit of some of the things that sold, sharing kind of the things on the higher end. But just so you know, there's a lot of things on the lower end as well. When you're just starting out reselling, you will make mistakes in terms of picking out a lot of items that maybe you shouldn't have. But I will say that's been a really great way to learn. Because now if I'm at the thrift store, I might look at something and be like, oh, I really like that, but then realize, hey, you remember the last one you picked up that took forever to sell and you basically had to beg somebody to take it off your hands? So you kind of learn by trial and error a lot. But there have been a lot of great winners. Mainly I sell clothing, but I will sell pretty much anything that has value. We'll talk a little bit about promoted listings, which I know there are such opposite ends of the spectrum in terms of opinions on that. I've been testing it out and I'll share with you what that has looked like. I just got done testing a Hollywood Regency Lotus lamp. If you ever see them like at a yard sale, estate sale, pick them up. They are highly sought after. They can go for hundreds of dollars. I did find this one at a yard sale probably a couple months ago. I paid $10 and it sat in my storage unit for those past 2 months, and I was like, okay, let's bring it home, let's test it out. Thankfully it works. Missing a few of the glass pieces, but it'll still sell. It'll be a beast to ship, but you can get more money if you open it up to shipping. I think I would dismantle it, take all the glass pieces out, wrap them individually. It'll be a pain, but it'll be worth it because it'll be huge profit. Another thing that can be worth good money, if you ever see these, the old school, oh my gosh, I can't even lift it, Electrolux canister vacuums. There's a picture of me somewhere and I'm like 2 years old and I'm like sitting on top and riding one of these. I mean, it built to last, obviously. I actually have a white one downstairs too, so I need to get those tested and listed. Clothes are a lot easier. You take the picture, you take the measurements, you get it listed. There's a saying, profits not projects. If you take on projects, don't let them sit. Just get it done, get it tested, get it listed, get it out of here. I do have the items that sold yesterday. I picked them this morning from my storage unit. If you're a clothing reseller or any type of reseller, today's video is sponsored by Jiaropack. You can go to them for all your poly mailer needs. I do have a coupon JenD10. Last month I had this really cute daisy print and in black. These are the best sizes for a lot of my shirts. Once they get bulkier or heavier, sweaters go up to a bigger size. The colors I just received in is this really pretty blue and also purple. They also have bubble mailers in different colors, of course. Sending out this vintage Green Bay Packers shirt on the Screen Stars Best tag. Nice little graphic there. Put this in our poly mailer from Jiaropack. I always fold it down as far as I can, just to try to get the dimensions down. And then, does anyone else do this just to make measuring easier? On my scale here, I have measured out the inches. So I can put this here and know that it is 9 inches by 8, and then I can go like this by 2, 8 by 9 by 2. Also sold this vintage tapestry purse. These are so beautiful. I think I only sold for like 20 bucks, but I paid $2. This will go perfectly in our bubble mailer. All right, I'm gonna pull my laptop over. I have not figured out how to record my screen on the laptop, or I have, but I have like zero memory left like to store it if I save it. So I'm looking at my laptop right now as I'm talking about items. I know this is like a lot of extra work, but I'll go on my phone that I'm recording with right now and I will screenshot what I'm talking about. Oh, and promoted listings. Let's go ahead and talk about that. So being that I've just started out, like cash flow is really important. So I'm trying to build up. My store is at like 1,100-ish items. I've been averaging 5 sales a day. I would love to be at 10. I mean, that would be awesome. I think I actually had 10 sales yesterday, but I also ran a sale on some of my older items, 30% off. So I think that pushed some of the older items out the door. And again, talking about some items that like I should never have bought to begin with. So some were items that were just like sold for $10 plus shipping and were just out the door. Use that money to make a better decision next time. I will pull up, I'm going to performance and then traffic, and it'll show like the page impressions, like how much eBay is pushing out your items. And when I went all out. I did the dynamic ad rate where you let eBay choose, and I'll tell you, like most of them were like at 12%, which is whoo. But it almost doubled. My impressions went from like 100,000 per day to like 200,000, like overnight, and then stayed there. So that was like a factual thing that I could look at and be like, okay, my items are being pushed out more. Page views went up. Sales, when you look at the overall sales, it didn't like double or skyrocket overnight, but I will say they were a lot more consistent. I could have maybe 3 sales, then 0. Like it was very touch and go. Whereas since I've done promoted listings, it's been very consistent. There usually isn't a day that I don't have any sales. But that's kept money flowing in, the cash flow going for the last 3 weeks. And when I'm editing this, I'll share my dry erase board over here. But in blue, you can see my sales for the week, and that includes like the shipping and everything that they pay. So for the last 3 weeks, I went from $1,200 to $1,400, and then last week was almost $1,800. Now, once you take away all the fees and everything I paid for those promoted listings, I don't want to say take home because it's not what I paid myself, but it was the money available left in eBay that I could transfer out of there to my bank account. We went from $595, $826 to $1,100. So it almost doubled in those 2 weeks. Now I am still promoting listings, but I didn't say, okay, eBay, you can promote everything at whatever rate you want. That's what I did at first, but now I've kind of reined it back in, because some items, when they sold, I was like, hey, this is a really good item. I probably didn't need to promote it. And then when I looked at how much it sold for versus how much I actually got to keep out of it, like you almost wanted to cry. I will individually choose which items get promoted and how much. But I was able to kind of see like, okay, what effect does it have on it? And it has worked, but you're going to pay a price. So know your numbers, know what you can afford to promote. And that's been my experience with it. All right, let's go to my solds. We will sort by what has sold for the most. First one here, I think I had shared this in another video, but we'll just mention it. It was a vintage Burton jacket. Burton is known for their snowboarding outerwear, especially with winter coming up. But this one being vintage, it sold for $215, and I actually got that for $10 on a Whatnot sale. This next one, I got this at a yard sale just down the street from here. Only paid a few dollars, maybe $5 for this. I didn't know much about it. It was this cathedral. Turned out to be Cathedral of St. John the Baptist, historic Savannah, signed by D. Mullis, which I guess was the artist on it. That sold just a couple days ago for $195. So I see that I have a message on eBay, and I see that it's for the cathedral item, and I was like, your heart just drops. And I was like, oh, maybe it's the buyer reaching out to thank me for wrapping it so well and so carefully. And I held my breath and I opened up the message and it was smashed. I mean, like the 2 main front parts were broken off, and I had individually bubble wrapped each little pointy spire on this cathedral, like wrapped it so well. So always a fun day when you have to refund a buyer $200. But she was super nice. You know, she's not mad at me. She could see how well it was packaged. I did submit a claim. You know, we'll see how that goes. I only spent $5 at a yard sale on this item, so it's not the end of the world. But yeah. I think maybe what I would do differently next time is double box it. You know, all that bubble wrap, put it in a box. Bubble wrap that box and put it in a bigger box like that. Oh, it was disappointing. I told her, you know, obviously she's not trying to get one over on me, not trying to scam me. The photos were clearly, like, it arrived very damaged. So I refunded her completely, said, you know, feel free to keep it if you're able to glue or salvage it in any way. But yeah, always sad when that happens. Okay, so this next one was a vintage Wrangler brush popper. You want to know what brush poppers are. It's got a little bit of a different feeling to it. Almost feels like waterproof, and it's thicker. Comps on these are all over the place, from like $40 to $200. So I reached for the stars and I priced this one high. And then I had lowered the price for a little bit, and then, you know, I was like, let's put the price back up. I don't know what the reason is between an $80 brush popper and a $150 one. Mine sold for $166 and I was so excited. So that was a great sale. I have not found another brush popper, but these are kind of all the home runs. We'll get into more of the more common things that we come across. I sold this, so I had come across, this was an estate sale, and it's odd because this was like an extremely overpriced estate sale. But up front they had this box of like vintage computer software, and it said free. Like, they just wanted somebody to keep it out of the landfill. I was like, okay, I'll take that. Well, I've been piecing out everything and like selling those for like good money, and here, so it was a Microsoft Macro Assembler 5.1 vintage software, 1988, discs, books in a box. Sold that for $90, and I actually think I took an offer on that, and I think it went overseas, and he really appreciated like that I took that offer of $90. I'm like, sure, no problem. And he said it was for like his collection. So that went to a good home. Here we had a vintage, it was a down puffer coat, sold that for $130. This next one I found like at an antique store. I think it was only $15. It was heavy. I just shipped this out the other day. Vintage typewriter Olympiette 3. Sold it for $100. And I don't know much about typewriters, vintage typewriters. So the most I do to test it, you know, I'll plug it in, I'll put some paper in it and see if it types. And if it types, I always do the same thing. I'll write, hello, I am a typewriter, or whatever, like my name is, and I'll put like the model number or whatever, just to show like, hey, it types. I don't know anything more than that. This next one was at an estate sale, was one of the first ones there, but there was probably like 30 people waiting in line. And then we find out that it's only in this 2-stall garage. I'm like, oh my gosh. So the door is open, and, you know, we're all flooding in. So I was not the first person to pass this. So this was after, you know, been in there maybe 15 minutes. And I see a box that says Sony, and right away my ears perk up, or eyes go like this, like, okay, Sony Electronics, I grab it. Did not pay much for this at all. It was a VRD MC6 DVD direct multifunction DVD recorder. It was practically brand new. I think I sold that the same day or like the next day for $110. So that was a quick flip. It was nice. I am not a DVD seller, nor do I want to be a DVD seller. They seem like a pain. They seem like they don't go for very much, especially if you're trying to get rid of a bulk of them. I was at a yard sale. There was some totes of CDs and DVDs, and I was digging through. I was looking for video games. I had found like 2 video games. They weren't even very good ones, but I was just digging through. And the guy says, he's like, I'll give you all of those totes for $50. I was like, okay. That, when we say profits, not projects, oh my gosh, that it took me several hours to go through everything, not only make sure like the DVD was in there, check on condition a little bit, separate things out. I just wanted to get them back out the door. So I sold, it was a 235 DVD movie lot, and this was just one of the lots. There's different ones. I pulled out all like the series, like the TV series, that's its own lot. But anyway, 235 DVDs, sold it for $109. And actually I shipped it in 2 separate boxes. I mean, to try to put 235 DVDs in one box, I'm like, let's split it. So I sent it in 2 different boxes. You know, got them back out of the house. I had already made my $50 back on them, so the rest of these lots I'm just trying to find a new home for them. So at this yard sale, the guy, he actually invited me to go down into his basement to look around to see if there was anything else I wanted, and he let a couple other people go down there as well. But I found these military, it was Russian Army food field ration, like your MREs, but it was from Russia. One of them had been opened, the box was still sealed, and it actually expired just last month in August. Sold both of them together, $125. They sold in less than a week. A vintage snowmobile Arctic Cat jacket liner. We do have snowmobiles. My husband loves snowmobiling. His grandparents had snowmobiles, so he kind of grew up with it in his family. A couple years ago, he bought me my own snowmobile, so that is what he likes to do in the winter. Like, that is his stress reliever. Let's go out, let's hit the trails. And we're an Arctic Cat family. So when I saw this, I grabbed it, and he looked at it and he's like, oh, that's a jacket liner. Like, I thought it was like an actual like jacket, but it's the liner that like zips into an outer jacket. So I'm glad he took a look at it, so I had it listed correctly. That sold for $54. Here was a Carhartt. I'm still trying to learn, like, some Carhartts are really good, like the jackets. Some, you know, they'll be more like average price. Carhartt jacket, men's medium, full swing, black lined, corduroy collar canvas work. Had some keywords thrown into there. But that sold for $95. So that was a pretty good one. This one, oh my gosh. So resellers out there, tell me your printer nightmares. Dymo label writer 5XL thermal printer, 4x6 labels for parts or repair. So I had this label, I was personally using it. It was working fine for like a month, and then it just didn't, and I could not figure it out. Reached out to customer service, but didn't want to deal with them any further. So I gave up and I bought a Rollo. So I threw this up on there, and I put like it was working fine for me. I don't know why it's not now, but there was labels with it. So even like there's money in the labels. So I sold that for $75. I will say I did not buy that brand new. I bought it from like an Amazon return place around here, not knowing if it worked. So I was happy that it even worked for me at all to begin with. Well, but then I gave up on it. We had a Wilson leather jacket. This just sold, I think, last week. Sold for $70. So check out your Wilson leather jackets. This one, LL Bean rolling duffel bag. This was also at that estate sale that was only the 2-car garage. And I saw this like luggage duffel bag, and I saw that it said LL Bean on it. I was like, oh, that's probably good. Well, here, the owners, like, there was still like an airline tag on it. So they had used it for traveling and wrote their name and address big in Sharpie marker on like both sides of it. And I was like, oh, okay. Only paid a couple bucks for it. I think that sold within 2 weeks for $59.99. LL Bean. I've been doing really well with LL Bean items, some of the more substantial things. This was a Main Guide zip front jack shirt. So I've been calling them shackets, and my husband's like, a jack shirt. I'm like, a what? He's like, we called them jack shirts. So like we kind of go back and forth. I'm like, it's a shacket, and he's like, it's a jack shirt. That sold for $62.80. Vintage player piano rolls. I was out visiting my dad and he had picked them up at a yard sale and he's like, here, do something with these. I kind of feel the same way about these as I would like DVDs. Like selling them individually was not something I was like super interested in. So I just sold them as a lot. I'm like, just get them back out of the house. They're taking up space. Sold them for $50. It was a lot of 34. So they paid less than $2 per roll. Like, that's fine. Just take them. Penn State. I've sold a lot of Penn State items lately. And I do live in Pennsylvania, so there's a lot of like Penn State items available like at the thrift stores. This was a Penn State puffer vest. This was nice. A men's 4XL. This sold really quick. I want to say within like a day or two. Sold it for $55, and that did come from the thrift store. I think all resellers are familiar with Vuori. I had a pair of Vuori women's daily wide leg pant in medium. That sold for $52. This Ralph Lauren dress, size 22W, found at the thrift store. This was new with tags. Love that. So it was a $198 dress. Sold it pretty quickly for $49.88. Here I had, it was a vintage camera. I am a hobby photographer, don't know a ton, especially about the vintage cameras. Like, I have a nice Nikon, but it's a nice point and click Nikon. I don't know all the ins and outs. So I had this, it was a Minolta 24 rapid rangefinder vintage camera, Japan. I did have the manual and I put, you know, as is, because I don't know how to test it. I don't know anything about it. So I just take really good pictures and be like, here. There was an REI Co-op puffer jacket men's. Looks like this was new with tags. It did have a logo on the front, but that still sold for $56.88. Found a New Kids on the Block t-shirt at the thrift store from their Magic Summer Tour 1990 that sold for $48. And shirts like this are the reason this, tell me where you're at with this, but this is what I struggle with at the thrift store. Trying to be somewhere in between, let's spend 6 hours at one thrift store and don't leave one single penny available on those racks, versus let's run in and out in 20 minutes and only grab the cream of the crop and we're out of there. Trying to find the happy medium. And the more I'm towards like, hey, we're just gonna buzz through and grab the cream of the crop, which means like not looking through all the t-shirts, in the back of my mind I'm always like, but what if there's that vintage New Kids on the Block t-shirt in the middle of that? Like, it's hard for me not to want to touch every single piece in there. So that's where we're at with that. Oh, our good old vintage Lisa Frank. If you see vintage Lisa Frank, I got this at a yard sale for $1. And I was all about the vintage Lisa Frank, like the dolphins and the whales. This was like a cowgirl, which I don't know I'd ever seen before. Cowgirl Western American flag. It sold for $55. Kind of listed that on the high end, just kind of seeing where we could go with that. But yeah, that was a really great sale. There was a Ralph Lauren belt. Don't forget to look at belts. This I bought from an estate sale. You know, nobody's looking at the belts. Nobody cares. I paid $2 for it and it sold for $45. This was a really nice, this was also a local estate sale. Pendleton blazer, men's, has the black watch tartan plaid, which is that plaid pattern you see there, is 100% wool. That sold for $57.99. Here was another software out of that software box that I got for free. Norton Utilities vintage software 1991, $39.99 plus shipping. This was a cool one. This one just looked cool. Vintage 70s ski jacket. The brand was Silton, California puffer, stripes, retro, men's medium. That sold for $40. Here's another Penn State item. Coliseum is the brand. Coliseum Athletics. It was a 2XL fleece lined windbreaker, sold for $47.77. This one just like felt like really good quality. I had to do a little bit of research on this, trying to figure out what it is I was looking at. Navy midshipman Champion sweatshirt, 2XL zip up jacket, heavy, Bill Goat. So Bill the Goat. That helped me to date it. And I put Y2K in the title, looking at their different logos when the Bill the Goat logo looked like that. So I had to do a little research onto their logos there. But that sold for $49.99. This next one, okay, I paid a quarter, 25 cents for this. It was a local thrift store. They were going out of business, not due to sales, I think due to just health reasons in the family. They were shutting down. So all of their bags, all of their purses were 25 cents. I have a garbage bag of purses that are still waiting to be processed that I got them all for 25 cents. I saw this. This was actually a garment bag, and I looked at it and I was like, no way, that's a Ralph Lauren. So it was a vintage Ralph Lauren polo garment bag. It looked really cool, and it also had, I didn't notice this until I got home. I'm not sure what those other little bags are for, but there was two matching bags with it. And I actually had somebody reach out to me wanting to know if I would just sell the little bags. And I was like, no, like I want to keep the set, because I'm sure there's a lot of maybe these garment bags available, but people that don't have like the complete set. So I did sell it as a set, $34.99. The original Muck Boot Company sold those for $35. Vintage Nike track pants. I'm always looking through the athletic pants. Y2K mesh lined gray tag warm-up gym athleisure. A little bit of keywords there. $42.76. This one was a leather jacket. I got it at a yard sale for $5. It was the brand Unique Leather, U-N-I-K. That was a brand I had not heard of before. Sold it for $34, so still a nice flip. We have a vintage LL Bean jacket, men's, small, medium. Oh, it must not have had the official like sizing tag still, so I put small and medium in the title. And then in the description, I would have said, like, please check measurements, as this does not have an official sizing tag. Sold that for $37.99. Columbia jacket. This is the women's interchange Omni Heat. It had a cool plaid like print on it too. Sold for $33. And I probably paid $10 for that. I mean, maybe I shouldn't have picked that up. Columbia is like one of those things where like you think it's probably going to sell for more than what it actually does. So be careful with that. I found this sweatshirt at a yard sale for $2. And I knew right away, I'm like, oh, that's really cool. Vintage Chase Authentics Jeff Gordon DuPont sweatshirt. I put rainbow in the title. I probably could have put color block in there as well. That sold for $36.49. Okay, now this one said sold via promoted listings. So let's look at this one and see what that equates to. View order details. Let's see how much I cried when I looked at what I actually got out of this one. Okay. So the buyer paid $36.49, $8.99 for shipping, $3.64 for tax. They paid a total of $49.12. Take away the sales tax, transaction fees, shipping label. For the promoted listings fee, I paid $5.85. So I only took out of that sale $26.33. Now, being that I only paid $2, still a wonderful flip. This is probably an item that did not need to be promoted. So I could have walked away with an additional $6 out of that sale. So that's what that looks like. This here, this just sold. Eddie Bauer sweater. So it was a women's 2XL, lamb's wool and cashmere, and it had the elbow patch, and it was vintage. That sold for $37.88. This next one, this came out of those 3 totes of DVDs and CDs at the yard sale. You know, things that I didn't know what it was. I looked them up, and I still don't know what this was exactly, but it seemed to have really good comps. BTS Memories of 2014 3 DVD set. Pre-owned, Sold it for $38.50 plus shipping. Okay. We had a vintage Cooper leather jacket, $38.77. This here, I was in New York visiting my dad, and there was this costume shop that was going out of business, and I found these vintage Barney costume. I found a couple, but this one here, 1993, it was still new in the packaging. I paid like $1 for it, and it sold for $39.99. Tyndale FR jacket. When you see stuff with FR on it for flame resistant, look them up. They'll likely have good comps. Sold that for $30. Look at this sweater, looks so cool. Like, I get so excited to find like cool looking stuff like this. Vintage 80s sweater for women, large knit geometric shapes, 90s Players Sport retro. So Players Sport might be the brand name there. It's just really cool looking. It sold that for $35 plus shipping. This was one that you just see it in the thrift store and you're like, I have to walk out with this because it's unique. Woolrich jacket, women's, small Sherpa fleece, full zip, horses, AOP for all over print, Western country. That sold for $37.88. It was a vintage coloring book, 1959. It did have some pages colored on. I did include those pictures. Sold it for $34.87. This here, I had to look this up. I didn't know what it was, but it looked like it might be worth something. A vintage Thrasher magazine hoodie, men's large, Y2K, skater, skateboard, green, flames. It had pretty good comps just for Thrasher magazine hoodies. That sold for $32.99. There was a Caterpillar cat jacket, extra large, insulated, work utility, quilted, rain, a windbreaker. Oh, this was pretty cool. Found it this is a thrift store. I think it was in with the dresses, which is why it caught my eye. I'm like, Nike. It was a bodysuit, full length unitard bodysuit, jumpsuit, yoga. Sold for $33.25. Next, I found this at a yard sale and I wasn't even sure what it was at first. Well, here it's for American Girl, like it's made by American Girl. Girls at Many Lands display case cabinet for 9-inch doll, and it was retired. Sold that for $38.77. Here was a J. Crew cardigan, women's small hand knit wool, Angora, cashmere. Had a lot of good stuff going on in there. Cable knit, fisherman. Sold that for $31.50. I think this was actually in with the 3 totes of DVDs, CDs. It was still new and sealed. Teaching textbooks, math, 6 CD-ROM set. New sealed homeschool. Sold that for $35 plus shipping. That sold within 2 weeks, I think. This one here, okay, I'm pulling out a lot of this stuff like I got a while ago. Like I think a lot of us, we shop faster than we list. So I pull this out and it's just like this lightweight little t-shirt. I'm like, what the heck? Why did I get this? The brand was Woolex, merino wool short sleeve t-shirt, women's, small blue base layer, stretch. It sold within a day for $29.99. So those base layers, Woolex, good stuff. This came out of that software box that I got for free. Test Drive 6, big box, PC, CD, Windows 1999, sold for $28.87. Here was another Burton puffer jacket, men's. Oh, and it says it had flaws. What were the flaws? Let's see. Oh, yeah, that's rough. So the zipper was broken. I probably just saw Burton and grabbed it. Then I get home and I'm like, oh goodness. The sleeve was the stretchy part on the end that was kind of ripped. There was some holes in it. So that sold, if it didn't have flaws, it would have sold for more. $35 with 20% off, and it was sold promoted listings. Let's see what that looks like in the end. Okay, so I might have been the one that set the promoted listing because it only took $1.98 for the ad fee. So it looks like I set it at about 5%. So they paid $35 minus $7. So they got it, a Burton puffer jacket for $28. plus shipping. In the end, I walked away with $24.57. If my cost of goods was $10, still profited $14. But for a Burton puffer jacket, you'd hope to profit more than that. But it still met my metrics. It still made $10 on it. Well, this here was cool. This came from that overpriced estate sale with the free software box. And this was in with their bag, like purses and bags and backpacks. And they weren't marked up. They weren't, these might have been a quarter. It was a I saw Columbia and I didn't know what this was. It's a PFG chest pack for fishing. And there wasn't many like available, and the ones that did sell like sold pretty well. So I sold that for $30. Here's more of my free software. Vintage Sound Blaster software, 3.5-inch discs from 1991, 1992. Sold that for $28.77. As you can see, I did pretty well on my free box of software. A vintage Steelers sweatshirt. I do live in Steelers country over here, so found this at a yard sale, 1995, sold it for $24.99. I'm always on the lookout for these like sweaters or sweater vests that have like the holiday stuff on it. This was Christopher and Banks, autumn, fall, pumpkins, teacher. I use teacher as a keyword, like teachers like to wear stuff like this, Halloween. Sold for $25. Those seem to be like a good like bread and butter item in that $20 to $30 range. Like here's another one along those lines of like the things that teachers like. This I had just got in the thrift store within the last 2 or 3 weeks, in the dress section. Vintage denim dress, size large, embroidered, teacher, fall, 90s. I put home ec, chef, and a cooking. You know, it's just one of those unique things that you don't see very often. Like, I've certainly never seen that pattern before with like coffee, mustard, cocoa, butter, like just on the shelf of ingredients. That sold pretty quick for $25 on a 20% off coupon. Some days when I just need some sales to come in, I'll just run a coupon on everything. Probably shouldn't do it on everything, but I do for whatever, 20-25% off to get some cash flow coming in. All right, so those are my what sold. Stay tuned. There is an auction for a storage unit nearby that I have my eye on. I have never bought a storage unit before. So that could be fun. And of course I'll document that if we get into that. But thanks for tuning in. I hope you have a wonderful day, and I'll see you next time. Bye.